Hello and welcome back to the Eyes of Old Gaming channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I have another older game in my What Is It and Is It Worth It game review series. In this video I will go through the various aspects of the game, trying my best to avoid spoilers for new players and give examples of similar games as well as my personal opinion as to whether I would recommend the game with a thumbs up or thumbs down and if I personally enjoyed it. I won't be giving a number rating to the game as many other channels do, as I find this to be a very arbitrary way of rating games, which like any other entertainment is completely subjective, and instead I prefer to give enough info for you to make a decision on your own if you would like to go forward with picking up this title for yourself. Today we hit the streets of an open world action adventure to take a look at Mafia 3. Mafia 3 was developed by Hangar 13 and published by 2K Games, releasing back in 2016, so it does have a few years on it by now by the time of this video. So what is Mafia 3 and has it held up over the years, and is it worth it for a first-time player to pick up today? Let's take a look at the various aspects of this title together and see if it's right for you. Mafia 3 is set in the late 1960s in a city called New Bordeaux. The city itself is fictional, however, it is based on an interpretation of New Orleans. You play as the protagonist Lincoln Clay, and during gameplay you will meet a variety of characters who will help you on your way as you fight to take over the organized crime within the city. There is a deviation from previous entries in the franchise, in that rather than actually being a member of the Mafia and rising through the ranks, your character instead is independent from the Mafia and will be taking on the established crime syndicates with the help of various partners to become the king of crime. Without giving away too much of the plot, there are other reasons for your war with the status quo crime families, and this underlying story will be played out as you progress through the main campaign of the game. The game itself is set in third person. You will explore, fight, and progress through the story in an open world environment. The main actions that you'll be taking part with in the game are driving, exploring zones, and combat. The game is one that I typically refer to as a GTA-like, as many of the actions and mechanics are similar to that of a GTA game. These similar mechanics being abilities such as hijacking or stealing parked vehicles for transport, similar combat, and the general look and feel of the game. There are some unique features, however, such as being able to call for support in the form of ammunition or supplies, vehicles, and other helpful support options, which you will unlock by various means. There are many cutscenes that tell the story throughout the game. Some are contemporary to the action, whereas others will be in the form of recollections from the future, which are played as characters recalling the events as they had unfolded. Though filled with cutscenes and story, I found that there was a greater emphasis on the gameplay aspect this time around, with a less compelling story than previous Mafia games. Graphics are still quite good by today's standards. NPCs look great, the main character is well designed, and outfits are interesting. Environments are also quite interesting, as this particular landscape has not really been represented in a game of this style before. The only problem I had with the graphics were the numerous graphical glitches which I encountered during my playthrough. Many times textures wouldn't load, and even with a reset, they would sometimes fail to render properly. There were also a number of small color stutters while playing, which although did not affect the game in such a disruptive way as the texturing issues were, it could still prove to be quite annoying at times. All in all, I would say the graphics are still good today, but with many technical problems which can cause headaches. The fact that there are still so many technical glitches and errors in the game leads me to believe that the developers either are unable or just don't care to fix the game with patches after all this time. A unique feature of the game is that as you take over territory, you will assign it to members of your criminal enterprise. This essentially just boils down to picking whomever you like the best, though there are some upgrades associated with the various characters. I felt that this could have been developed more with a real hierarchy system, creating a mafia organization from the ground up in a way which I had assumed would have happened when I initially began playing. The game is called Mafia. However, the system is actually rather simple, without much strategy or complexities involved. The system in place is not necessarily bad, just underdeveloped from what I had expected or would have liked. Though this may actually be a benefit to some players if you're looking for a more streamlined, GT-esque approach rather than something more along the lines of Godfather 2 with promoting associates and building your family. Sound is really something that I would put into the moderately good category. Nothing really out of the ordinary from what you would expect, but everything works rather well. I did enjoy the soundtrack included for the radio, however that really depends on your preference. Keep in mind that this game takes place in the 60s, so you're going to have music contemporary to that time period throughout. The radio does get a little bit repetitive over time as you play, and there is a lack of a talk radio style station such as in the GTA series. However, the game does do a good job of using news bulletins on the radio to update on key events that you take part in throughout the game.
He just took his life. That man just got shot.
My God, this star-armed character. I just have to wonder who he thinks he is.
You're absolutely right, Red.
Come again?
So what would I compare this to? Well, as I have already done so throughout, there is a strong connection to the GTA franchise. I tend to use this as a kind of gold standard when looking at these style of games to compare them against. Typically, I am more interested in how different games deviate from the standard GTA experience and what new things they can bring to the table rather than how well they're able to clone that style. Aside from that, you also have the obvious previous Mafia games, Saints Row, or even Watch Dogs, all with open world cities to explore, driving, hijacking, combat, and third-person perspectives. It was interesting that I got a very strong Vice City Stories vibes from this game, especially when taking over particular criminal enterprises. The way your friendly gang will arrive and take over felt very similar to this much earlier title. So now that we've looked at some of the features of the game, we reach the point of my review where I give a more subjective look at my personal experience with it. Please keep in mind that the following is just my opinion of the game, and if the features and genre seem interesting to you, you should definitely check it out for yourself, as not all games are for all gamers. The game that you hate might be the next gamer's all-time favorite, which is one of the things that I love about gaming. There's always something for someone out there. Okay, so subjectively here, did I enjoy the game and would I recommend it? Well, it was okay. I felt that the story got a little bit boring the further that I went in, and the tasks felt increasingly repetitive. In the beginning, taking over an area can feel very fun and interesting, but over time they all start to feel very much the same. I also find that many of these style of games have a major flaw when compared to a typical GTA game. The difference being that they try to create a complex character with a unique sense of morality. It just seems very strange to me that you're put in control of a character who's expected to run around psychopathically murdering everyone, but then the game still tries to almost pass off the character as morally gray. I found a similar issue when playing Watch Dogs 1. To me, these characters are not morally gray, they are psychopathic murderers, and really the game would be more fun to me if they would just go the GTA route of presenting an almost Tony Montana unrepentant bad guy, rather than trying to justify all the killing, stealing, and general mayhem towards innocent bystanders all throughout the city.
You don't have the guts to be what you want to be. So say good night to the bad guy.
This might seem a little bit of a nitpicky attitude, but to me it just makes the characters feel very forced and difficult to empathize or roleplay, as it seems impossible to understand their morality. They act with an air of righteousness, yet they also have no problem hijacking a car from a random person and plowing it into a crowd of people on the street, so it really just doesn't make any sense. Compare this to a character like Trevor from GTA, and you don't run into these moral discrepancies. He's a lunatic, plain and simple, and that just seems to make much more sense character building wise. All in all though, I would say the game definitely has its moments and is a good one for the right person. If you really enjoy these style of games, this could be a great one for you. The only real negative critique I have towards it is the numerous bugs and glitches that plague the game to this day. I crashed out more during this one than any other that I've played recently, and although I was able to get through the entire story campaign, it was a major frustration to work through. I typically stick to games that have been out for a couple of years in hopes that the developers have gone through and actually patched all of the or most of the game-breaking bugs. But I found that with this particular game, it had numerous bugs still within it, which, as I mentioned previously, I can only assume is due to the developers either not being able to fix these bugs, or else they just don't care and they've left the game in the state that it is and they're happy with that. So definitely play at your own risk. So I really hope you liked this look at Mafia 3 today. Have you already played the game? I would love to hear your own take on it down in the comments. Also, what do you think of these games' attempts at morally gray characters? Do you think it is a waste of time to try salvaging their morality, and should they go the Tony Montana route if they're going to be the bad guy, just be the bad guy? Or do you like this kind of hypocritical, somewhat confusing morality structure that a lot of the games are presenting players with today? Also, did this review push you to pick up the game, or are you staying away from it? I'd like to hear your decision on that as well. If you liked the video, please consider giving me a like on here and also subscribing to the channel. I make and upload a variety of gaming content and would love to have you join the community and help direct where the channel goes in the future. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching today, and until next time, take care.